Good afternoon, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm your ever-loving host, Shorty, and yes, I know I'm running a little bit later than usual. This is due to delivery issues yesterday, stuff rolling over, then coming in today and having a buttload of stuff to do. But I did find time amongst all of that to read Harley Quinn's new comic book. Now, Harley Quinn is one of those characters that seems to be popular, I think, just because of how they're presented. In the same way I think Deadpool is. And I know a lot of people are like, wow, you're saying Shorty? Deadpool's like one of the most famous comic book characters in the world. And while I can certainly see the point there, I think a lot of that comes down to meminess and occasional movies and appearances and other things. I kid you not the amount of times I've had overheard conversations in store, people saying how much they love Deadpool, followed quickly by the question, oh, what's your favourite comic book? I'm sorry, I've not read any comic books. Harley Quinn, kind of the same. Not as bad, I think. She's definitely got much more comic book presence, and a lot of the stuff that's happened that people talk about kind of exists mostly in the comic books. That is until the Harley Quinn animated TV series, which, by the way, is fantastic, and pretty much a prerequisite for this comic book. Not to say they don't give you a bit of a rundown on what's happened, but one of the few criticisms I have of this comic book is when they're doing that, it gets hella wordy. That's the most wordy page in the entire comic book, and it's just exposition about what's happened in the TV series to explain why they're currently on the run, why Ivy isn't wearing a wedding dress, and why Gordon is wearing a dog collar. The clerical dog collar, not the animal dog collar. And it's all very good. It needs to be put in there, and I'm glad they do it, and I'm glad that's one of the few times you do get far too wordy. It happens on occasion elsewhere, but always when it's just done for the sake of exposition. There's a recurring backup character, Tawny something or other, who's a newsreader or an anchor. A newsreader. And every once in a while, when plot developments happen, she turns up to basically move them along a little bit or inform the viewer what's going on, and it gives Gordon a chance to come and grab a mic and scream into it looking crazy. Characterization wise, I actually really like what they're doing with Gordon in this one. I don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of the commish, but having him as more of a overbearing goofball, I think works quite nicely. He gets way angrier than he does in any other media I've seen him in. He seems more likely to mess up and more likely to do particularly silly things, all of which plays quite nicely into the animated style they're going for. This is certainly an adult-oriented comic book based on an adult-oriented animated show, but having goofball humor in it, I don't think detracts from it. I think it adds to it, and it makes it easier to basically pass off to people and say, this is good, check it out. No, you don't know anything that's happened before. It is kind of silly, and you've got sharks that talk in it and stuff like that. It's brilliant. Because of that style, I was worried about how the art would play out in a comic book. Quite often when you see animated stuff put into comic book, they maintain that style throughout, and it doesn't necessarily work all the time. I am a big fan of the Batman animated TV series, the original stuff at least, and some of the more recent ones as well. But whenever I see the artwork that they use for the comic books, I always feel like it's selling a little bit short. It is done that way on purpose when they're animating, simply because it's easier to keep that all animated when you've not got crazy amounts of detail in and each panel needs to be drawn. When you then put it into a comic book, even Beavis and Butthead realized this. People who may not be aware of Beavis and Butthead, they were an animated thing on MTV. They got their own movie. When they did the comic book, they went way more detailed on the artwork because each panel was hand-drawn rather than a panel's worth of activity would be 27 drawings. So it made more sense. Feels like for Harley Quinn, they have learned this lesson and they have gone all out on it. When it comes to discussing the artwork, there was a word that was creeping into my mind when I was reading it, and I wanted to make certain that I was not going to use it unnecessarily. I have gone back and I've flipped through pages and I've pulled bits out of it and gone, yes, okay, this artwork is perfect for doing what it's supposed to do. Is it the best artwork I've ever seen? I don't want to go that far. But in terms of intent and what it actually managed to do, I cannot imagine it being any better. There is use of over-the-top eyes and action and dynamism all within just fixed imagery. There's also detail in there, which is brilliant. At one point, you have to be crying into a mirror, not particularly unusual situation for somebody going through an emotional happening. But in the mirror, there's sticker on it, a bathroom mirror with instructions for washing hands because of COVID. And they've actually put the detail in so you can see all of the stuff on that sticker. It's brilliant. It is also worth pointing out that this is a comic which doesn't shy away from sex in any way, shape, or form. But what it does do is keep most of the lurid aspects of that merely as description. Harley and Ivy talk quite a lot about what they're going to do to each other. When you get to the actual sex scene, There's a hint of male gaziness about it, but for the most part, it is romantic and over quite quickly. You don't get much detail about what's going on at all, which is good because only rated for 17-year-olds. But if you're going to read it, be aware that they, in no uncertain terms, talk about in graphic detail what they want to do to each other. I think it actually makes it far more entertaining, makes it quite realistic for me, and stops it being about the over-sexualization of female characters in comic books, which is a good thing. All in all, check it out. But go and watch the TV series too. You're not going to be disappointed. That's it for me today. I was going to do a Primordial review, but they've totally sold out already, so I've only got a couple more to do, so I'm probably going to do my regular review schedule for the rest of the week. So come back then. But until you see me, keep it safe, everyone. Bye.